So let's call the January 19th MSAB 60 school board meeting to order. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ellen, if you'd like to read the public input.
The first public input session is a 21-minute session, with each person having no longer than 3 minutes in which to make a statement. But a second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair. The speaker will give his or her name, address, and reason for speaking. Public input is designated for district residents, but the board chair may grant non-residents the opportunity to address the board. Statements concerning subject matter that falls under the law regarding executive sessions, for example, matters involving personnel, cannot be made during public input. We as a community pledge to treat each other as we wish to be treated. We pledge to seek understanding when there may be disagreement. Regardless of outcomes or opinions, we pledge to move forward with respect.
Thank you, Ella. And do you have anything that you'd like to speak about tonight?
No.
Okay. Just a spectator. Okay, thank you.
Chauffeur.
So let's take a look at the minutes of January 5th. Does anybody have any changes or updates that they'd like to make?
I'd say nothing jumped out at me, but I'm not thinking it's major, so.
That at me.
Anything look? We have a motion then to accept the minutes of January 5th as written.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of January 5th as written.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? And the motion is passed. And moving right along to Echo, we're anxious to hear about the student report.
No, I don't have anything very exhilarating this week. All I have to report is that finals have been going on this week and the student body may be a bit tired and grumpy. I'm not talking from personal experience, so
No.
that's it.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Echo.
And are they happy that already? Are you happy about tomorrow? Oh, yeah. Even though it extends the finals one more day.
Hey, but second semester is gonna start. That's cool.
Yeah,
Over halfway through.
Yeah.
Really. Don't look so excited.
Okay, so we have our financial report.
I told her we were putting this at the end of the meeting,
Financial report?
Yeah.
Why?
so she had to stay here longer.
Went over my head too.
Troublemaker. Troublemaker.
So you should have the financial report through December 31st that was attached to your agenda. Believe it or not, we're halfway through the fiscal year. And we're plugging along. Let's see, we're still spending a lot in bus transportation for athletics, but we are still within the budget. So we're hoping that the second half of the year brings healthy bus drivers and full staffing, so. That's about all I have.
Everything looked like it was tracking along. It didn't seem to.
Is it because of you having to add higher buses elsewhere to cover sports and all that stuff?
Yes, I've followed a number of C&J buses out the driveway and it's a very expensive thing, so.
Kids enjoy them way better.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty nice.
Okay, well, if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot them my way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for staying.
Yeah, really. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
I did offer to just do that for her, but she felt compelled to be here.
Well, she knew she was gonna have tomorrow off, so.
Yeah. I think probably not. I think it'll be a work day anyway.
Budget.
Oh, really? You'll be here?
You'll be here or you'll be working from home, but she'll be here.
Okay, so now we're going to do the policy first reading for the student representation to the board.
Hard copies are coming.
All three that were put into play?
Yes.
Ever had anything about this in the
No.
past?
Well, there's the voting.
Right, which is
But
additional,
we
right?
didn't even have a guidelines for having a student rep on the board.
Really? That was good prep for years.
So let's go.
I like it. It's a good policy number two, BBABB.
Here's my copy. Does everybody have?
I kind of read that. I don't need-
Oh, look,
Okay, so
All right. These pages. So the policy committee met, I believe we met earlier this week. It's on Shan. We had, when we started talking about, having a policy for student participation on the board, Jen kind of did a search, for neighboring communities, and we only found two policies. One was for RSU 21, which is Kennebunk, and one was Wells Agawit. So when the policy committee met, we looked at both of those. So we took most of the language, we liked most of the language and the consistency and the conciseness of the 21, which is Kennebunk, but we did add the eligibility piece on there from Wells. So I don't know if you want to take a look and we can.
Good to me. It amazes me that we didn't have one.
I know.
That just boggles my mind.
the first thing under eligibility, I don't get, the athletics and the extracurricular activities, why would they, unless they were suspended for school or whatever, they would be eligible, right?
And grades.
Or grade.
Oh, great.
Grades, yeah.
Grades, okay.
Gotta keep your grades up.
Each student representative shall attend business and workshop meetings of the full board. Should that say shall or may? Like, is it optional or? Man, I feel like shall makes it mandatory, more mandatory than may versus optional. I don't know which we want.
Well, I think shall is appropriate because if they're going to have a vote, they need to know the ins and outs of, I mean, I know it's not a compulsory vote, but still, if they're going to be voting, they need to know some of the ins and outs of how that process happens.
So
I feel like it's a much larger time commitment. I feel like we're asking.
Well, it
For the
depends on
students,
which
they
ones
shall.
that, they didn't say
Right.
all of them,
Right.
okay?
Well, I feel like shall makes it more
Because
mandatory
typically
instead of may.
some
is like-
workshops that have to
Yeah,
do-
shall means they have to do it. May
Shall.
is like, they're welcome to
Right.
join us.
How about just will? Kind of not quite as much as shall, but can. May makes, I don't know, kind of makes it sound like they're much.
It's
I don't want to go tonight.
Stronger than shall if you think
Yeah.
about it, because they will do it,
Right.
not shall do it.
Yeah.
I feel like
Shall
may,
is
yeah.
less.
How about we do a little, each student rep shall attend appropriate business and workshop meetings.
I agree
Maybe
with
it's not
that.
all of them,
Mhm.
it's just whatever.
Or-
Appropriate.
Okay, I missed that whole part. Where was it?
It's in the, it's like third, fourth line up on the first paragraph.
And then the last line of that paragraph, or participate in negotiations committees. I don't think you need the S on negotiations. I think it's just negotiation committees.
Will they be serving on committees?
they could. They could be, yes.
No, it says here that, so it's, student reps do not have the right to participate in executive sessions, receive confidential info that's shared with the elected board members or participate in negotiation. You can't negotiate with the teachers,
Right.
Echo, I'm sorry.
But they could sit in on policy.
Yes,
meetings
yeah.
and- Yeah,
Yeah, so some other,
So I had a question. Do we need to address somewhere in this that how these representatives are chosen? Are they elected by the student council or body, or are they by the house?
on the shoulder and say Echo.
we did talk about that at the committee.
I'm sorry. I
No,
missed
that's
that.
fine. And when we talked about it, we, historically, it's been either the student council or, from administrators or teachers or something like that.
So should we address that somewhere in here?
I think we wanted to leave it a bit more open, so there could be, multiple nominations from different sources,
Okay.
instead of saying that this is the only way.
Okay.
Couldn't you just say, candidates can be from on student council or recommended by a teacher or administrator, whatever, you know? Well, you don't have a
Student
choice in
comes-
there.
What if a student comes to us though and says, we want to be on, we want to participate? We want to neglect them to.
Be your admin.
I know that happens all the time.
That's okay. Council members are actually voted on by the student body. Is that correct?
I don't even know anymore.
Wait, what?
Student council?
Be on the student council. Are you nominated and then voted on by the students? Yes. So
All
that's where
members?
the students have chosen their representatives.
But we only had one person run, so.
Is it all members or just officers though? Sorry, Echo. Is it all members or just officers?
All. We,
No, no.
I'll check in with
the president and a vice president, and there was only one candidate for each, so.
But then do you have like,
Yeah.
when I was in high
Yeah,
school.
is it a thing where like the freshmen meet and they pick their class?
Yes. Yes.
So then the sophomores would do the same and
Okay,
juniors
yeah,
and so on. Okay. So they do pick their representation. So their it would make sense to come bring it out of that representation, if I could speak English. Yeah, that would make sense. They've already chosen them to be the student council, which is student government. It would make sense for us to have the student government participate.
Are you on student council?
Assuming that they would have time to.
Yeah, I see both sides.
And I know, I'm just saying I agree with that, but that's why I just would like to leave it open, because if,
Right, because you guys said it is just somebody taps somebody on the shoulder and says, I'd like to nominate you. Okay.
And like Echoes started because of the book challenge, right?
Yep.
That's how she became involved.
Okay.
As
She
just
was-
a student rep to the book
Right,
challenge.
she was recommended by Ms. Taylor, who's the librarian, and then when you were sitting on the book challenge, I was like, ooh, we could really use a good representative. So,
So it says we have two. Who was the other one?
up to,
We don't have
up
one.
to
You
two.
have to.
Up to two. We only have one at this point.
Do we need to have anything if there are more than two, how we will choose who is
I
elected?
My other question is too, Heather, and
No, no, go ahead.
it kind of mimics that one. When we're talking about the representation, would it make sense to have someone from the student council also be the second?
So here's the thing.
They run a lot of, they run a lot of the stuff that goes on at school. They may have more information than
I think,
sense.
I think student council isn't the same as it was when we were in school. So that's a big piece of it. I do think that recommendations from the administration is probably the strongest way to go. Or that, to be honest with you, I think if you lock in a specific group of kids, that's just limiting. I just think it limits it. So I would be more inclined to say that representatives will be chosen or nominated by like administration or teachers or whatever. And then if we have it,
Limiting two, can we at least have one nominated by teachers and that, or somebody from something else or student?
sure.
Or whatever.
It's just thinking about, yeah,
We can drop, we can
Yeah.
drop something up.
Because that could be limiting too.
yeah, well, let's talk, and we can talk to AJ and find out like what groups are really active in the school.
That
Like,
would be good.
Can we even say something like must be nominated by a staff member or write a letter to present to the board? Should they nominate themselves or something like that? I mean, because that's what, right? If someone themselves chooses to, do it, then if they come in with a letter, then that's gonna be like, wow, yeah, that's a fabulous letter, let's get them on here versus like, maybe not the best fit.
I don't mean to be negative, but it has never been anybody come to me to say I want to be on.
I was thinking of a way to do that.
Kind of big people.
Outside the office.
But the main thing is that we can't have a process, so.
Yeah,
it's
Telling everyone how amazing it is, so now they're gonna come knocking down our door.
amazing, it looks good on your resume.
Yes.
College application.
Yeah.
We'll drop something up.
I'm going back to the shelf anyway.
Oh,
And I'm just thinking, Echo has attended a lot of meetings in the past. And then people like maybe had to miss a meeting for this, that. Should we say each student representative is invited to attend, that means they should be there, but maybe won't feel guilty if they're not there for
So-
something important,
Each student representative will be
will be invited.
invited
Or
to
is
attend
invited,
business, is invited.
Yeah.
To
To
business
attend.
and workshop meetings of the full board.
Does that, I mean, that kind of is in between. Might come if they want to, or.
Yeah.
I like it the way it said it with option, with the,
Appropriate.
appropriate, thank you. I'm looking right at the word, appropriate, I think it's better that.
I like appropriate.
They'll kind of get what they need.
Yeah.
To be here to kind of be a bigger part of what we're doing. Otherwise, they may feel like some of us feel when we do our first board meeting and we're just sworn in and we're like, what? We're doing the budget? You know, so they have more of a idea of what they're stepping into.
And I do like appropriate in there.
I think that is, yeah, it's very good.
Do we want to add to that sentence about, committees? Because I don't think, we just have what they can't attend for, like, the negotiation committee, but do we have that they're invited to attend other committee meetings?
Or
Or
join
that-
other committees.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, be a part of other committees or go to other committee meetings.
When we say that they'll be at those, to participate in those sessions, we can also offer them at that time, but that's the kind of thing we'd be teaching them at the thing is, these are the things that we have that you can serve on. Let us know if you're interested, but give them a piece of that at that time, so it's, you know, something they'll understand that this is part of what they're doing. You realize we're gonna have a notebook for them to have, things that they're gonna need to do, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, no.
I was just thinking, if we're gonna write this for meeting, then we're never gonna refer to it again, probably.
Yeah.
I was thinking the opposite.
Have some kind of recognition. Is there any, do other schools give out a credit or any kind of,
Some do
Award.
give out credit.
okay.
Definitely community service hours.
Right,
You should be,
right.
I
Yes.
know you probably have all the ones you need, but you should certainly be documenting those. It's all community service stuff.
Should we put a statement in there to that effect?
That they can use our time for your community service, most definitely.
What is the process to turn it into like getting a credit for it? I mean, I feel like it's catch-22. I feel like probably the students that join are probably students that have plenty of credits and don't need the credit is my guess. But I also, I mean, should it ever be, you know, in a down the road, a situation where it's like coming off an expulsion committee or something where the kid, like the student needs to grow up quickly and like learn this kind of stuff. And part of their coming, you know, reentry is to sit on the board for 6 months or like something like that. I don't know, just something like I just want to set them up for, I want to set them up for success of
This is
like whoever's.
punitive now.
I know. I'm sorry.
But that then.
A good thing that we could offer to the
I don't-
principal,
you
to
know.
offer to them that the committee, be the committee and
Yeah.
see what we do, you know, that's to the board, not the committee, but yeah, to the board.
Otherwise, great job, committee.
It's a good
That's a really good start.
For them.
Do you have feedback
Yeah.
as a student rep right now?
I don't.
Is this what you thought you were getting into? Like, does this meet everything you thought you were signing up for when you said yes to sitting here?
Plus chocolate.
Chocolate, nicely done.
Just for formatting, maybe at the begin, you know how we have term underlined
Yes.
eligibility, maybe at the top, something that just says overview.
Or purpose, some of them.
Yeah, description, yeah.
Eka, when you, over the next week or so, will you think about what you would tell a prospective student representative to this board? I think that might inform this a little bit as well from your perspective, from a student perspective.
Do you like the prospect that your vote, while it won't officially count, will go towards our thoughts?
How does that work? I just want to know how that's gonna work.
When you vote.
Oh, we're
you
voting?
vote.
Yeah.
So you can see from the student perspective what that vote is.
Yeah.
But it won't be in the official.
It's not a tiebreaker.
Right.
It's not gonna turn us into a tie.
What I'm saying,
It's
is
a
it would be
piece
nice to
of
know
trivia.
ahead of time, the student perspective before we all vote, because it's while we're voting.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if there's a way we could do that.
she can participate in
Absolutely.
the discussion, yeah,
Yes.
which you're doing a little more of, which.
Yeah, do you feel like you can butt in at any point in time to share the student perspective? Okay. Please.
I'm not trying to put you on the hot seat or anything.
No, it's, no, but
That's
you're
something
taking
that
your
you
time to
can
be
communicate.
here, so.
I need to know that you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to come back with reading number 2. Last time, draft 2.
Great start. You
Okay.
did a wonderful job.
Did we decide we're gonna do your update today or do we?
We will do the update today. Okay. Let's see, and we do have some employment updates as well, so we want to
Okay,
make sure we cover that. So just very quickly, again, we go through attendance. So student attendance from 1/9 to today, we had the high of 95 and a low of 93, so that's good. Looking good. And for staff attendance, again, it's teachers and ed techs for illnesses, per schools. And so the high was 3 out at a school and the low was 1 out. So we're
For the whole
doing
district or per school?
per school,
Okay.
per school. So we're doing well
Yeah.
with those.
What was your first number for teachers? I'm sorry.
For teachers, the high was 3 out for illness. The low was 1 out.
And so how's our sub pool?
We just put another ad in for subs. What's happening is some of the subs are taking over they're applying for some of the ed tech positions.
Yeah.
And then we have a couple people that are going out for longer term things, so they're covering some of the longer term things. So we've put an advertisement out for 5 subs. So, yeah,
We'll take 10 of them.
we'll take we'll take whatever we can get. So a few other updates. We just had a bus driver that was taking a test, passed the test. So that's really great. And we do have some, ed tech positions that we are advertising, but we're getting candidates for, so that is helpful as well. We are still struggling with transportation, as Denise said, because we didn't have enough drivers. Getting students, athletes to the game is the tough part. So we do have to charter those buses. We can pick up typically because it's later in the day. So those drivers that are doing a double run do have time to go pick up students at the end. Some of the struggle is when the parents pick up and then we have a bus there and a driver's there and they're not, the students aren't coming home with the bus driver. So that's something we're trying to just kind of work out and get more notice about which parents are kind of picking up.
Oh, you guys don't have a policy for that?
We have a policy, but I think I know we're sending the buses.
So what I'm saying, like you go to a game and
Yes.
like we always used to do it, you
Yes.
had to have a note from the parent
Right.
previous,
Right.
approved by the athletic director, so.
I think
So
that,
all we have to do now is sign the kid out
Yes.
at the end of the game.
Yes.
Really?
I'm taking the kid home,
Right.
which is fine, but it's a waste of a bus trip.
right,
That's what.
There's no kids or, all you're doing is bringing the coaches back.
Right.
It sounds like.
So we have to tighten that up a little bit so that we don't have a bus going out for 2 people. Trying to figure that out a little bit. So we're working through some of that.
But the coaches are gonna have to ride the bus to supervise the kids, so they're still gonna be
Right.
there, you gotta get them.
Yeah,
I
we'll
mean-
have to figure that out.
Carl
Yeah.
and Travis and going that way.
Well, I was just thinking, if we put out to these teams, I'm sure the parents would be more than willing to help carpool, because we're all going to watch the game.
Right.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, I'm bringing my kid home with me.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't mind throwing other kids in the car if I needed to, right? So, but it's communication. It's all about communication.
So that was my question. Can you bring home another student?
Right.
It has-
I
With
can- I
with
can if I-
a note from the
with
parent?
permission.
With permission.
With permission.
Yeah, with permission from the
Doesn't
parent.
have to be district.
We can talk about it there, because that is, it's a little bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, that is a big nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
So the driver that passed the test, remember how you said that it was all hands on deck, there was nobody left here? What does that do?
That frees up Brenda Cravens, the transportation director, to not
She doesn't have
drive.
to drive.
So it's just one right now?
Right.
Okay.
Did they pass both tests?
Yes, both parts of the test. Yes. That's good. And then our other update is that I know that there's been concern and questions about how Kevin Moore is doing. So he was released from the hospital yesterday and we saw him today. And
He came in today.
he did come in, he came in.
He came in and bring us his note that he can
Doctor's
go back to work.
And so things are moving ahead for him. it's quite a process.
Did they retest things?
They did. They're not sure that they're gonna be bendable. But they will have a stinger.
Table saw?
Yep.
I thought it was.
So custodial crew is, the facilities crew is great. They're all prepared for, they've been prepared for whatever needs to happen and have a great chain of command with Kevin having been out. They've, really utilized the principals and us. And so it's a well-oiled machine. So
That's great. Okay. Should that put him at ease too?
except he wants to be here. He
Okay.
likes to work,
He
so
just wants to be at work.
it may impact his golf, but.
Oh, my goodness. Not that.
Right.
They make special golf clubs for that.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sure that, yeah.
He's already got them on order.
Did the job fair at Hussey already happen, or when is, I forget when you said that was?
We're still working on.
Okay. Okay.
We just have some higher employment updates. Do you want to go right into that?
Sure, let's go right
Okay, so we have a few updates. The first is we have a new hire, and this is going out a little bit. So this is for Mark Leahy, who is a school psychologist, USM graduate student, and he is doing an internship right now with us in our district. And we are short a school psychologist, so we are looking to bring him up for nomination for employment in September. It's way ahead of time, but given the fact that in the program, there's very, very few psychologists finishing a program, finishing an internship, we just felt it was in our best interest to extend him a contract with your, to start paying, to start at the school year, but get him on the docket right now. That's the hope.
Scoop 'em up.
Yeah, scoop him up.
Okay.
So we just would like that. He's doing really well. He's getting elementary experience, upper elementary, middle and high school experience, and doing really well. So that's the nomination. So we do need we need a motion and a second for that.
Make a motion to offer Mark Leahy a contract.
I'll second.
All those in favor? The motion is passed.
And then we have a resignation for Hannah Farley, who is the life skills teacher at Hanson School. And she put in her resignation effective for next Friday, the 27th. So we do need a motion and a second for that as well.
What are our chances of getting a replacement?
Interestingly, we interviewed a candidate last Friday for resource position at Milton School who has some very similar experience to this. So we have a high probability of that. So that's good. Yes, that's great.
So do we have a motion to accept that resignation?
I make a motion to accept the resignation of Hannah Fowler.
Second it.
Those in favor? The motion's passed.
And then we have Katie Riley, who's Noble High School English here. She is currently on a leave of absence, and she sent a note into AJ Dufort and Allie Kearney, just saying that she is going to resign after the leave of absence is done. So she won't be returning. She went out for childcare for her own family. So we do need to make a motion and approve that resignation.
Do we have a motion to approve that resignation?
I make a motion to accept Katie Riley's resignation.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? The motion's passed.
That's it.
Do we have any other topics that folks would like to discuss this evening?
Got super fast PTO updates.
I've heard that before.
Super fast, because I remembered about 45 minutes before the meeting, so I was like, anyone have time to share anything? Berwick started their Muddy Mile sponsor packets to deliver them to local businesses. Packets are due in April. Their Muddy Mile event will be held May 25th and 26th this year. They have Penny Wars going the first week of February, and all funds raised from the Penny Wars will go directly towards Teacher Staff Appreciation Week for this year. Lebanon
Penny
Wars? Yes. Do you know what? Because I didn't want the description.
It's
It's fun. It's
fun.
so,
Kids have fun with it.
yeah, it's, you, like each, you can do it by class, by grade, however you do it. And there's a jug per whichever you decide. And every penny counts as a point. Paper bills count as like $1 counts as 100 points. And anything silver is negative points. So like,
Sabotage another room. You take all your quarters and put it in.
fifth grade is in the lead, and like all the kids bring in quarters to dump in the fourth grade thing. So regardless of how you do it, you're raising, it's all money that you're raising. But I think each school does it different times of the year. Lebanon begins their readathon January 30th, and their bingo night fundraiser planning has begun, and that will be held in March. Their penny wars are in May. I think North Berwick's gonna be March, if I remember correctly. And then North Berwick, we have our hula hoop competition. That was a pre-COVID thing, apparently, that is back in action next Friday at our gym from 5 to 7, if anyone wants to come watch. And then we are doing our first annual adult prom on February 11th. Yeah, with Trailblazers and Wells, so 21 plus event, and excited. That's it.
The Penny Wars is really fun when they figure out the strategy. Like when you can watch them figure out the strategy,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really fun once you get it.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, a couple quick things. I had a citizen ask me about, we've got elections in Lebanon on Tuesday, and the kids can't go to school. We're having instead of having troopers, we're gonna have the sheriff as of Monday, so the citizen's inquiry was, can we, and they would, obviously the town would have to pay for it, but if we had a sheriff, could the kids still go to school that day?
I think that's a wicked
And-
short turnaround.
And no,
That's for the
a
future.
conversation that I already
Okay.
had said that if it was something that could be done, that it probably couldn't happen right off. And they said, well, just futuristically, so every time elections don't come.
How come they can't go to school? Because they
It's
used
safe,
to.
it is safety.
It gets a
It's
little
yeah.
crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
And it actually, I mean, we've done the same in North Berwick on remote in North Berwick when we were doing. But those have typically been presidential
I'd
elections,
say.
because so lots.
Lebanon's had a few recalls,
Yeah.
you know, and so it has caused some issues. We did look at a couple of things. We looked at going to off campus so that we'd have like a field trip.
Ah,
And a couple other, like there was a team building at UNH that they do, but they were closed for the season
Yeah.
already.
They're trying to get
So we
some-
are trying to do some of that work, but
okay. All right, that was for them. And then I had something for me. What was it? Sorry. Oh, actually, I had two things. One came from tonight. You know how in our policy with expulsions, we're asking the deliberation part. You know how we always ask and it's like, do you want to? And there's kind of confusion involved. I don't know if we're just following off of a different policy or if we can just make a decision on that. I hate having to ask them every time and everybody looks all awkward and no one knows what to do.
You mean
in
about
terms
I
of-
think that you
saying
have,
like-
if
you
they
have to
can-
have that in there. They have to have the choice, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like we gotta have a better way of, and I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
anything bad, it's just like every time I feel like people look confused about it and they don't know what to do. Maybe we could send them something ahead of time in the packet.
does.
I
Oh, it does.
and I met with them.
Okay,
I meet with the families before an expulsion, and go through the process,
Okay.
and I do talk about, you can stay, you can leave, if you
Okay.
stay, then
Yeah.
admin stays, but it is it's a very hard
Well, it's
process.
just awkward.
It's a
the whole-
hard
the whole
process.
meeting. I mean, really.
I think, using an example, if the student does not want to stay, but the parent does, is that an option?
That's the first time I heard
Yeah,
that.
you can answer that. for people.
So, yeah, that is an interesting question that I
Because
will.
sometimes I understand why the student wouldn't want to stay.
Yeah, right.
And
That's, that's a question that we can't answer. We're gonna
Yeah,
get.
I'll ask about it because,
just bring it out,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's out there, so that, as long as you guys look into that,
Yeah.
that's fine. I just
Yeah.
wondering
Question.
if the administration stays, the parent stays, but the student opts out, is that an option? That's all.
yeah, I can.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
Just wanted to be clear.
all right, and the last one, kindergarten is foundational. But after that, I feel personally that all subject areas should be covered. And I know that in Lebanon, there are sometimes a semester of a subject and then it's gone and then there's another semester. In other words, switching from maybe social studies one semester and then they don't have it the following, but then they have science. I'm just kind of putting this out there as I didn't know about it until recently. And I wondered if we could kind of get a poll across the board to see, is Lebanon in line with the other elementary schools doing this? And then just to throw my personal thing out there of, I really feel like we should be hitting every subject area. And Lebanon does do STEAM, but that's not, that's not fully encompassing on what they should be learning for the science curriculum. So basically just see what everybody's doing across the different elementary schools and I guess get a conversation going about if you guys agree with that or not. And
what I can say is we, at the elementary levels, it could be very common that you would see a semester of science and then social studies and then science, because if you're looking at math taking over an hour and literacy taking 90 minutes and then writing taking an additional 20 minutes, and then you've got a special lunch and recess, you really are pressed for time. So we do use like Scholastic News to continue the social studies piece if science is occurring. And teachers do in literacy, like in their book groups, they do work on nonfiction text, science and social studies as well. We can certainly have a further discussion. Lebanon's not the only one.
Yeah. All across the
Okay.
district.
Yeah.
How does that
We
work
do-
for retention?
Excuse me,
How
sorry.
is that working for the retention?
Of the
kids?
materials, I think like when we're using like the Voss Science kits, because we do have some kits that we need to use, we have very good retention now that they're doing hands-on like experiments and different pieces and parts like that. But when we go through the nonfiction section of the literacy from the Common Core, they do a lot of talking about like reading informational text, but as they're doing that, they're gaining content knowledge with that. So the retention has been, from what we can tell from the testing, has been good for that. I think I'd have to poll the middle school to see how the fifth graders are coming in with that, yeah.
And
Specific example.
With the science, having done it.
Yeah.
They're good but they're meaty and they're lengthy. And you wouldn't want to shorten that to be able to get another half hour of social studies in. Rather take, a good hour or whatever it takes to do the activity and then you can focus on social studies.
I hear you, but I come at it from a different perspective of, if you're not going to, you don't have to do it every single day, but you could switch off. You've got social studies this day and then science the next day. Just a whole semester of missing it is just huge.
Yeah, and I don't believe they are in the sense that they're using like Scholastic News. They're talking about current events. They're bringing in, like when we've had elections, they bring in elections, even if the focus is science.
So social studies was covered this semester. It's actually science that I was referring to. And in a broader, this is a much bigger thing to talk about, which I know everybody wants to get out of here tonight, so I'll keep it short. But I think there's ways that we could tighten up on things to give more time. And it's more of a personal feeling I have, which is kindergarten and first grade. I think kindergarten for sure, they can have second recesses. First grade, I've always kind of thought, well, maybe you start the year off like that and then you ease out. But that's like a half an hour that the first grade could be getting extra time. And it's just like these little tiny things that just generally even transitioning from specials, even if we tighten up enough that they're getting an extra 20 minutes of something that they're not supposed to get for the semester.
But you gotta remember that they are still kids.
Mhm.
You still need to be able to have that time to release.
Right, which is what recess is good for that, but I don't,
Tighten them up too much means that they don't have that time to release.
right.
But if,
And and then the behavioral issues in the classrooms get affected big time.
So there's a couple things with that. Like I said, kindergarten, fine. First grade, you ease into it and you need the second recess, but they have the first. They have specials that they're transferring to and they're constantly moving when they're in that low grade level. I can at least speak for Lebanon that, there's extra time that could be had.
I think it's by school. I know my kids, like in kindergarten, often had the second recess. Now in first and second grade, they've had to do something to earn it. It's not
Mhm.
part of the norm, but to touch on your your first question about science or that topic, just an example of like, I know Max in first grade just now in literacy did a whole thing on penguins, and they read about penguins and they had to do a glossary of penguins, and it was all scientific facts about penguins. So like, it wasn't a separate science class, but it was all about penguins and all these facts and everything that was part of literacy. So, of course, all schools, all teachers, all everything, because this is his literacy group, which is not the same as the rest of the first grade and what they're doing. But it just to touch on, like, I do think they're trying to drip it in. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be complete focus time, but I can attest to like, and again, depending on the teacher, the class, et cetera, it is being dripped in here and there. But yeah, I'd be curious what each, I guess that's a good question. What do the schedules look like for each grade at each school? And are they, well, and I guess they're doing the NEMI testing or whatever you guys do.
Yeah. And
Whatever. I say NEMI, testing. So I think that, how long does it take to get those results?
So right now, I think this one's gonna be a quick turnover. In the spring, it's not going to be.
Okay,
In the spring, it's gonna take us probably till the fall.
okay. And is NEMI just basically math and literacy for the test?
Yes.
Really help us figure out if
Right.
they're missing science and social studies. Okay. But it's a good question to look at.
Right, and I think that one of the things too that we have to allow is that there's, our staff really does well with what they teach and how they're teaching it, and undertaking into consideration, just the whole development process for kids. So I think we can have a conversation for sure. But and there's always a question of more time, like we would love more time, but then it's just trying to fit it all in too.
I hope it didn't come across as a personal slam to
No,
the staff because, okay, yeah, I know everybody works hard and I appreciate what they do. I just, you're always looking for what can
Yeah.
change and
Yeah.
I just want all the kids to get as many learning opportunities as
Yeah,
possible. That's really what it comes down to. I don't want them to have holes and then the next year it's like, oh my gosh, they've missed this and they should have known that, or it's harder for them to get into now that it's an expectation that it's the full year and they haven't even been used to it.
Well, they don't test in science and social studies, when they do the MEAs for the, no, it's just math and reading and writing, right?
I think science starts in the
Fifth grade.
fifth grade.
Yeah, see, I think that's very common. I mean, I can remember my daughter being in second grade and they did a whole biology thing and it was like, oh my God, they did biology. It was like never happened. I just think there's so much going on. The second steps going on, there's specials going on, there's math and reading and writing and.
There's a lot going on, for sure.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that what you're saying isn't like to be considered. We can definitely look at this. But we would, I think, with the recess piece, you would have a conversation very similar to that with the staff about what that recess does for kids. So it's a good, right? It's a good philosophical discussion. Nothing bad.
It is.
Right, it's
Yeah.
nothing bad. All right.
I have a quick question for you. Last meeting, or the meeting before, you talked about an intern program.
Mhm.
Can we help you? What do we need to do to get that jump started?
Oh, it's actually,
We have.
it was my idea and I was just saying that I would be willing to volunteer, do anything that's needed for it, but I'm not actually taking reins. Apparently they have something in the works from AmeriCorps.
Yeah, we just met with them yesterday, actually.
Oh, awesome.
They were thinking along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
thank you though.
So we have a lot of flexibility. We met with Julie Smythe, who is at the main DOE, and she has a grant through AmeriCorps. And just talking with, trying to partner with some of the schools in York County. So not only talking with us, but Massabesic and Bonnie Eagle, some of the bigger schools, right? And so we're talking just about that. How do you retain, how do you build and nurture the mentors for younger students and high school students, so that if high school students are going, out and coming back, we want them to come back to teaching in our district. So we're having that exact same conversation. And so next Wednesday, we're meeting with the school administration to just kind of talk about what that may look like here and how we can participate here. But it's very open right now as far as AmeriCorps goes, as far as we can work on developing what we want versus implementing what they want. So we're at the beginning stages. of that.
Oh,
So
great.
that's good. And then we did, Shannon Swiger went down to York County Community College and met with them to talk about ed tech certification and some sort of work with the college around working with those students that are in early childhood or different programming to come and work, to do an internship for ed tech in a school, and how that could potentially look and how that could very much help us.
Yes.
So we do have a couple different areas that we're looking at.
Great.
So,
Great.
love the same for bus drivers, but I haven't been able to figure that out.
Oh, my goodness. Bus driver college.
Yes, yeah, sure.
Okay. Any public input? Nope. All right, so before we adjourn, we want to make a decision on whether or not we're going to have an executive session tonight or at our next meeting.
You just hand out the, and then we can talk about them next time.
We can do that. Do that. We'll hand out the goals. Last time you said that I would come back with some goals and we can talk through those. We'll hand them out and talk about them next time.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Does that work?
Okay. All right, then do we have a motion to adjourn? Let us know.
Listen. You have a
A
second?
second.
All right. All those
In favor?